In the shadows of modern warfare, there existed men whose names never made the headlines, whose missions were buried so deep that even their own government denied their existence. Among these ghosts, one name stood above the rest: Commander Jack Mason, leader of Shadow Unit, the most effective Black Ops team in military history. A man credited with over 30 successful deep cover operations whose methods of infiltration and elimination became required reading at Langley, even though his identity remained classified. Some say he died in Tehran in 2010, others claim he vanished into the mountains of Pakistan. The truth, as it often does, lies somewhere in the forgotten spaces where old soldiers go to disappear. If you're enjoying this story, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's video will take you even deeper into the world of forgotten warriors. Now let me tell you about St. Marcus High School in Portland, Oregon, where 3 months ago, the emptiness of early morning hallways belonged to a quiet janitor named David Cooper. At 54, Cooper moved with the unhurried patience of a man who had found peace in simple work. His cart squeaked along polished floors as he methodically cleaned each classroom before the morning bell. Teachers who arrived early would find him humming softly, his grey uniform pristine, his movements efficient but unremarkable. The kind of man you'd pass 1,000 times without really seeing. Detective Sarah Chen of Portland PD had a different perspective. 15 years on the force had taught her to notice the little things. How Cooper's eyes automatically tracked exits whenever he entered a room, how he positioned himself with clear sightlines to all approaches, how his hands never trembled, even when startled. "Man's got military written all over him," she told her partner one morning while conducting routine community outreach at the school. But Cooper's background check showed nothing more interesting than 20 years of janitorial work at various institutions across the country. The Raven Syndicate changed everything. They'd been moving east from Seattle, a sophisticated criminal organization with paramilitary precision and international connections. Their advance team arrived in Portland with plans to establish distribution networks through local schools, starting with St. Marcus. Marcus Wong, the school's elderly security guard, first noticed their surveillance. Black SUVs with tinted windows, making regular passes during lunch hours, men in expensive suits asking casual questions about security protocols, photos being taken of delivery schedules. Cooper observed it all while mopping floors and emptying trash bins, his practiced eyes noting faces, patterns, tactical positions. In the teacher's lounge, Vietnam veteran and history teacher Robert Morrison recognized something in the janitor's careful movements. "Some men," Morrison told Principal Diana Hayes, "carry silence like armor, the kind that comes from seeing things that can't be unseen, doing work that can't be acknowledged." The confrontation began on a Tuesday morning in late September. 2. Men in tailored suits approached Cooper as he cleaned the east hallway. Their shoes cost more than his monthly salary, but their hands bore the calluses of people familiar with weapon grips. "Nice setup you have here," the taller one said, his accent placing him somewhere in Eastern Europe. "Very peaceful. Would be shame if anything disrupted that peace." Cooper kept mopping, his movements unchanged. "The floor's still wet," he replied softly. "Wouldn't want anyone to slip." The implied threat hung in the air like gunsmoke, but the men only smiled and walked away. They never noticed how Cooper's grip had shifted on the mop handle, transforming it momentarily into a potential weapon, or how his stance had imperceptibly changed to facilitate rapid movement. In a penthouse office downtown, Viktor Petrov, the syndicate's advance coordinator, was reviewing surveillance photos of St. Marcus High. "This location is perfect," he told his security chief. "Minimal police presence, access to 3 different neighborhoods, existing infrastructure we can utilize." The security chief, a former Spetsnaz operator named Dmitri, studied the school's personnel files. Security is light. One old guard, 3 janitors, standard locks and cameras, no challenges. If they'd had access to certain classified files, they might have recognized the way Cooper moved in those grainy surveillance photos, might have seen the ghost of Commander Mason in his measured stride. But those files were buried deep, just like the bodies Mason's unit had left in some of the darkest corners of the world. The autumn wind carried a hint of rain as Cooper finished his morning routine, the halls now gleaming under fluorescent lights. Soon, students would flood these corridors, their lives still untouched by the shadows gathering around their school. But for the first time in 13 years, David Cooper found himself counting supplies that had nothing to do with cleaning, calculating angles, mapping choke points, remembering skills he'd hoped to never use again. The war for St. Marcus High was about to begin, and the Raven Syndicate was about to learn why some janitors are best left undisturbed. St. Marcus High's reputation for academic excellence had always attracted wealthy families from Portland's most affluent neighborhoods. That same appeal now drew predators of a different kind. Viktor Petrov understood the value of appearances. His organization had perfected the art of hiding criminal enterprises behind legitimate facades. The Raven Syndicate's surveillance continued with military precision. Every delivery, every security patrol, every shift change was documented and analyzed, but they weren't the only ones watching. As Cooper cleaned the second-floor windows one morning, his reflection provided perfect coverage to observe Dimitri's. Men photographing the school's service entrances, Detective Sarah Chen, reviewing security footage from nearby businesses, noticed the pattern. "They're mapping the whole facility," she told her partner, Detective Mike Torres. "But what catches my attention is the janitor. Watch how he's always in the background when these guys show up, always positioned with clear sightlines." Torres leaned forward, studying the grainy images. "Think he's working with them?" "No," Chen replied, remembering Cooper's careful movements. "I think he's hunting them." In the teacher's lounge, Robert Morrison was sharing his own observations with Diana Hayes. "During NAM," the old veteran said, keeping his voice low, "we had these special units, men who could blend into village life for months, watching, waiting. Cooper moves like them, purpose hidden beneath routine." The principal's concerns grew as she watched more luxury cars circling the school during lunch hours. "The police say they're monitoring the situation, but these men seem professional, connected." "Some enemies," Morrison replied, "require shadows to fight shadows." That afternoon, Cooper was fixing a broken lock in the East Wing when Viktor Petrov himself appeared, flanked by 2 guards posing as maintenance contractors. The syndicate leader's expensive suit seemed out of place in the school hallway, but his predatory grace marked him as dangerous. "Your dedication is admirable," Petrov said, his accent carefully modulated, "taking such pride in maintaining this institution." Cooper kept working on the lock, his movements unhurried. "Every job deserves respect, sir." "Indeed." Petrov smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "But sometimes change is inevitable. New management, new directions. Progress, you understand?" "Things change," Cooper agreed softly. "People don't." Something in his tone made Petrov's smile falter. For a moment, the crime lord's carefully cultivated sophistication cracked, revealing the ruthlessness beneath. But before he could respond, students flooded the hallway as classes changed, and Cooper disappeared into the crowd with practiced ease. Later, that night, in his modest apartment, Cooper opened a locked trunk for the first time in 13 years. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lay the tools of his former life, equipment that had served him in some of the world's darkest corners. His fingers traced familiar shapes as memories surfaced. Tehran, Kandahar, places that didn't exist on any. Mapdotes, a burner phone rang, one of several he'd placed with trusted contacts years ago. Shadow Actual, a voice said, using a code phrase he hadn't heard since his commanding days. Moscow's finest have joined the game. Dmitry Volkov, former Spetsnaz, led the O9 Grozny operation. Cooper's jaw tightened. He'd crossed paths with Russian special forces before. Acknowledged. Any others? 3-man tactical team, probably Alpha Group training. They're treating this like a military operation, Jack. They should, Cooper replied, using the locks. Reflection to scan the street below. Because that's exactly what it's becoming. The next morning, as Cooper made his rounds, subtle changes appeared in his routine. Cleaning supplies were positioned near strategic points, maintenance access panels were left slightly loose, and his cart now carried extra weight in carefully concealed compartments. In the school parking lot, Marcus Wong found a note in his security booth. Watch the loading dock between 2 and 4. Count visitors. The handwriting matched the school's maintenance logs perfectly. Detective Chen, driving past the school, noticed Cooper washing the front windows. His movements seemed random, but she recognized military hand signals worked into his cleaning. Pattern. Someone with training was meant to see this message. The war for St. Marcus High was moving into its next phase. Viktor Petrov had built his criminal empire through careful planning and overwhelming force. But he was about to learn that some opponents can't be overwhelmed. They can only be survived. The first signs of autumn painted Portland's trees in shades of gold and crimson as Detective Chen compiled her report on the Raven Syndicate. Their pattern was becoming clear. They'd used the same approach in Seattle and Vancouver, infiltrating schools through legitimate business fronts before establishing distribution networks. But something about St. Marcus felt different. They're moving too carefully, she told Torres, spreading surveillance photos across their desk. Look at the resources they're committing. 3 weeks of continuous surveillance, former Special Forces operators, Petrov himself making appearances. This isn't their usual approach. Torres studied the images, particularly ones showing Cooper in the background. Think they know about him? No, Chen replied, remembering her own military intelligence training. But they sense something. Predators can feel when another hunter's nearby. At St. Marcus, the morning routine continued with deceptive normalcy. Cooper's mop moved across the floors in precise patterns, but now each stroke was calculated to provide maximum visibility of approach. Routes. He'd positioned cleaning supplies at key points throughout the building. Bottles of industrial chemicals that could become weapons, maintenance tools that could serve other purposes. Robert Morrison found him checking the locks on the gymnasium's emergency exits. Used to do perimeter sweeps like that in Da Nang, the old veteran said quietly. Same technique, make it look like routine maintenance. Cooper's eyes never stopped scanning. Some habits stay with you. They're getting bolder, Morrison continued. 2 of them tried recruiting students yesterday, offering part-time work opportunities. His disgust was evident. Did you get names? Better. Got photos. Morrison slipped a phone across the maintenance cart. My classroom overlooks the parking lot. Good angle for surveillance. Cooper allowed himself a small smile. Once a soldier, always a soldier. In his penthouse office, Viktor Petrov was growing. Frustrated. St. Marcus should have been a simple operation, but something felt wrong. Reports from his surveillance teams described normal school activities, yet there were inconsistencies. Security camera blind spots that shifted daily. Maintenance work that seemed to anticipate their movements. Someone is playing chess with us, he told Dmitry. The pieces are moving, but we cannot see the hand. The former Spetsnaz operator studied blueprints of the school. The janitor concerns me. His patterns appear random, but cover every tactical position, like combat reconnaissance masked as cleaning routes. Petrov dismissed the notion. A school janitor. You're being paranoid, old friend. Paranoia kept me alive in Grozny. Dmitry replied, we should look deeper into his background. That afternoon, Cooper noticed increased activity around the school. More suits appearing in luxury cars, more phones photographing the building. They were escalating, preparing for something. He found Marcus Wong in his security booth, reviewing visitor logs. "They're bringing in new players," the elderly guard reported. "Different cars, but same military bearing. Someone's building a strike team." Cooper nodded, remembering similar operations from his past. Time to change the game. In her office, Principal Hayes received an unusual maintenance request. All exterior locks needed checking before the weekend. The paperwork was perfectly routine, yet something about the timing nagged at her. She remembered Morrison's warnings about shadows, fighting shadows. Detective Chen, monitoring police band radio, caught a pattern of unusual vehicle registrations near the school. European luxury cars with diplomatic plates all recently arrived. And from Seattle, the syndicate was mobilizing resources, but why such a show of force for a simple school takeover? That evening, as Cooper finished his shift, he made a call on one of his secure phones. "Need background on Viktor Petrov's operations in Eastern Europe, particularly military connections." The voice that responded was aged but sharp. "Already on it, Commander. Interesting pattern emerging. Every facility they've taken over has strategic value beyond drug distribution. They're building something bigger." "They'll move soon," Cooper said, watching the sunset paint Portland's skyline in shades of blood red. "Within days, you're not equipped for a full tactical response." Cooper's reply carried the quiet certainty that had once made him legendary in the special operations community. "I've been equipping this building for 3 weeks. They just don't know it yet." The pieces were set. The Raven Syndicate was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous ground is the kind that's been prepared by an invisible enemy. The war for St. Marcus High was entering its critical phase, and the ghost of Commander Mason was ready to remind the world why some legends are best left undisturbed. Detective Chen's investigation hit a wall that sent shivers down her spine. Every attempt to dig deeper into David Cooper's background encountered the same response: records unavailable. Not sealed, not classified, simply non-existent, as if someone had systematically erased 20 years of history. "It's what we don't find that tells the story," she explained to Torres as they sat in their unmarked car outside St. Marcus. "No military records, no employment history before 2010, no digital footprint at all. In today's world, that kind of invisibility takes serious resources, or serious training," Torres added, watching Cooper methodically clean the school's windows. "Look at his movements. He's using the reflection to monitor that black SUV across the street." Inside the school, the tension was building. Robert Morrison found 3 more students who'd been approached with job offers, each one carefully selected. Kids from broken homes, desperate for money and attention. The syndicate's recruitment playbook was methodical, predatory. "They're building a network inside the school," Morrison told Cooper during their daily maintenance check, "using kids as scouts, marking targets." Cooper's response was barely audible. Not for long. In his penthouse, Viktor Petrov received the preliminary background check on the school janitor. The lack of information set off every alarm in his carefully honed survival instincts. Nothing before 2010. That's impossible in this age. Dmitri, who had survived 3 regime changes through paranoia and preparation, studied surveillance photos. "Look at his hands when he works. The calluses don't match his tools. Those are weapon marks, trigger finger, knife grip. You think he's law enforcement? No." Dimitri's face darkened. "Police leave paper trails. This is something else. In Afghanistan, we had a term for operators who could vanish so completely. Prizrak. Ghost." The conversation was interrupted by urgent news from their Seattle operation. Someone had accessed their secure servers, tracing financial connections back to Eastern European accounts. The intrusion was sophisticated, military-grade. Coincidence? Petrov wondered aloud. In our business, Dmitri replied grimly, coincidences get you killed. At St. Marcus, Cooper was methodically implementing his own operation. Principal Hayes found maintenance requests that subtly altered student schedules, moving classes away from vulnerable areas. Security cameras developed selective blind spots that somehow always faced away from certain maintenance corridors. Marcus. Wong, making his evening rounds, discovered new security protocols appearing in the system, professional-grade upgrades masked as routine software updates. He smiled, remembering similar tactics from his own past. Before becoming a school security guard, Wong had served 20 years in Hong Kong's Special Duties Unit. Your ghost is showing, Commander, he whispered to himself, understanding now why Cooper had chosen him as an ally. Detective Chen, following her instincts, reached out to military contacts. A former Delta Force operator provided cryptic insight. There were rumors back in 2008 about a shadow unit that disappeared completely. 12 operators who officially never existed. Their commander was a legend, guy who could turn any environment into a weapon. As evening approached, Cooper received an encrypted message on one of his secure channels. The intelligence was clear. Petrov's organization had connections to former Soviet military officials. St. Marcus wasn't just another target. It was part of a larger operation involving multiple schools across the Pacific Northwest. They're building a pipeline, his contact explained, using schools as cover for something bigger. Military-grade hardware moving east to west, drugs moving west to east. The schools provide perfect cover, regular shipments, predictable schedules, minimal security scrutiny. Cooper watched the sunset from the school roof, his cleaning supplies arranged to conceal his surveillance position. Below, another black SUV circled the building, its occupants photographing entry points. They were preparing for a major operation, probably within days. In his apartment that night, Cooper reviewed building schematics, marking potential ambush points and escape routes. The maintenance tunnels beneath the school, officially abandoned, years ago, had been quietly prepared over the past weeks. Each access point was rigged, each corridor turned into a potential trap. The next morning, as students filled the halls with their usual energetic chaos, Cooper pushed his cart with measured precision. Each supply cabinet he passed now contained more than cleaning materials. Each locked room held strategic supplies. The school itself had become his weapon. Every corridor a potential battleground. The Raven Syndicate was about to learn why some secrets are buried so deep, and why some ghosts choose to haunt places worth protecting. The storm arrived on a Thursday morning. Sheets of rain turning Portland's streets into mirrors of darkness. Viktor Petrov stood at his penthouse window, watching lightning illuminate the city. Behind him, Dmitri delivered the news that confirmed their worst fears. The Seattle breach wasn't random, the former Spetsnaz operator reported. Someone targeted. Specific files, our military contacts, shipping schedules, school operations, professional job, military precision. Petrov's face hardened. And our friend, the janitor? Facial recognition found a partial match in classified Russian archives. A ghost story from Tehran, 2010. A shadow operation that went bad, ended with 3 GRU teams eliminated. No witnesses, no traces, just bodies left with surgical precision. Lightning flashed again as Petrov absorbed the implications. You think one school janitor is responsible for all this? I think, Dmitri replied carefully, we are dealing with someone who knows how to turn entire buildings into weapons. Someone who's done it before. At St. Marcus, Cooper moved through his morning routine with heightened awareness. The storm provided perfect cover for surveillance, and he noted 4 new vehicles in the parking lot, all with reinforced suspensions suggesting armored modifications. Detective Chen, reviewing traffic camera footage, spotted the pattern. "They're setting up a perimeter," she told Torres. "Look at the vehicle positions. Classic military containment formation." "We should move in now," Torres argued, "before this gets hot." Chen shook her head. "Wrong play. Look at their equipment, their training. This is beyond standard police." Response: "We'd be walking into a massacre." In the teacher's lounge, Robert Morrison shared his own observations with Marcus Wong. "They're trying to look casual, but those aren't business suits they're wearing. That's tactical gear masked as formal wear. Same stuff we used in Nam for urban operations." Wong nodded, his own special duties unit training recognizing the signs. "Third floor, west corridor. I've counted 6 of them, using maintenance inspections. As cover, they're mapping emergency response routes." Principal Hayes found herself walking a delicate line. Her instincts told her to evacuate the school, but Cooper had quietly advised against it. "Predictable reactions give them control," he'd whispered during their last maintenance review. "Keep normal routines. Let them think they have surprise." The storm intensified as morning classes began. Cooper used the weather as cover to position emergency supplies in key locations. Each bathroom now contained sealed packages behind loose wall panels. Every janitorial closet concealed equipment that had nothing to do with cleaning. Detective Chen, following a hunch, reached out to international contacts. The response from Interpol was telling. Similar patterns had emerged in Eastern European schools, criminal organizations using educational facilities as distribution hubs, always preceded by sophisticated surveillance and military-grade operations. "Your janitor," her contact advised. "Keep watching him. Men like that don't retire. They just find different battlefields." In the school's basement, Cooper met with Wong near the old maintenance tunnels. The elderly security guard had brought blueprints showing recent modifications to the building's power and water systems. "They've accessed the main utility controls," Wong reported, "probably planning to cut power and communications when they move." Cooper allowed himself a grim smile. "Let them. Sometimes the best trap is the one your enemy thinks they've set themselves." Upstairs, Morrison noticed students acting as lookouts, their movements too practiced to be casual. The syndicate's recruitment had been effective, turning desperate kids into unwitting accomplices. "They're using our own students against us," he told Cooper, during a carefully staged maintenance check. "No," Cooper replied softly, his voice carrying that deadly quiet his old unit had learned to recognize. "They're giving us a reason to end this permanently." As afternoon approached, the storm showed no signs of abating. Lightning continued to strobe across darkened skies, thunder masking the sound of final preparations on both sides. In his penthouse, Petrov made the call. "Tonight, full tactical team. I want that school locked down before dawn." What he didn't know, what none of them realized, was that St. Marcus High had already become a fortress. Not against them, but around them. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and the ghost they dismissed as a simple janitor was ready to remind them why some legends survive. Night fell early, the storm's intensity turning 4 o'clock into midnight. Detective Chen, monitoring police frequencies from her unmarked car, watched black SUVs converge on St. Marcus from multiple directions. Their choreographed movements spoke of military precision. "They're moving," she reported to dispatch. "Count 8 vehicles, probable tactical teams. Request immediate backup." "Negative," came the response. "Storm's got emergency services stretched thin. Nearest units are 20 minutes out." Torres gripped his steering wheel. "We can't just sit here." "Sometimes," Chen replied, remembering her intelligence training, "the best move is to let the trap close." Inside St. Marcus, the last staff meeting of the day was wrapping up. Principal Hayes had followed Cooper's suggestion, keeping everything normal despite her instincts screaming for evacuation. As teachers filed out, Robert Morrison lingered. "Marcus, Wong reports their advance team is already inside," he whispered. "Using the storm as cover to move equipment through the service entrance." Cooper nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Right on schedule." In his penthouse command center, Petrov watched live feeds from his tactical teams. Dmitri's voice crackled over. Encrypted comms. Alpha team in position. Beta and Charlie moving to secondary entries. No signs of police or federal presence. "And our ghost?" Petrov asked. "Last seen cleaning the third-floor corridor, maintaining normal routine." Petrov smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "Overconfident, thinking one janitor could disrupt our entire operation. Commence Phase 1. The school's power cut out at exactly 5:15 p.m. Emergency lights cast weak amber glows through empty hallways as backup systems engaged. In the security office, Marcus Wong watched his monitors go dark one by one. "They've taken the main grid," he reported into a concealed radio. "Running on auxiliary power." Cooper's voice came back, barely a whisper. "Let them think it's working." Dmitri's teams moved with practiced efficiency, securing corridors and stairwells. Their tactical gear now fully visible, they looked like shadows come to life in the dim. Emergency lighting, but something felt wrong. "Too easy," Dmitri muttered, years of combat instinct screaming warnings. "Where's the resistance?" On the third floor, Cooper pushed his cleaning cart into a supply closet. Behind cleaning supplies and maintenance equipment lay the tools of his former trade, equipment that had served him in some of the world's darkest corners. Detective Chen, monitoring the situation through binoculars, noticed subtle changes in the school's darkness. Certain windows remained completely black, while others showed faint signs of movement. "He's channeling them," she realized, using the darkness to guide their approach routes. Morrison, who'd insisted on staying, positioned himself in his classroom with a clear view of the main corridor. The old veteran recognized the tactics. Being employed, he'd seen similar strategies in Vietnam, where terrain became a weapon. In the maintenance tunnels beneath the school, Petrov's beta team encountered their first surprise. The access door that had been unlocked during their afternoon. Reconnaissance was now sealed. As they worked to breach it, none of them noticed the cleaning supplies stored nearby, industrial chemicals that, when mixed, would create a powerful smoke screen. "Beta team, report status," Dmitri demanded over comms. "Doors sealed. Working. On alternate route. Wait, something's wrong with the air." The transmission dissolved into coughing. Upstairs, Alpha Team was experiencing their own difficulties. Corridors that had been clearly mapped now seemed to lead in circles. Emergency. Exit signs pointed to doors that no longer opened. "The building's wrong," one operator reported, professional calm cracking. "Layouts changed." In his command center, Petrov watched his carefully planned operation begin to unravel. "Find him! Find that janitor now!" But Cooper had already vanished into his prepared killing ground. The ghost of Commander Mason was awake, and St. Marcus High was about to become a haunted place in ways the Raven Syndicate never imagined. The storm's fury masked the sounds of chaos unfolding within St. Marcus High. Beta Team, stumbling blind through chemical smoke in the maintenance tunnels, never saw the shadow that moved among them. 3 operators went down silently, there. Tactical gear useless against precisely applied pressure points. "Beta Team, report." Dmitri's voice crackled over encrypted channels. Static answered. In the security office, Marcus Wong watched through specially modified cameras as Cooper's trap unfurled. "Like watching a master chef," he muttered, remembering similar operations from his Hong Kong days. Everything prepared. Just right. Timing perfect. Alpha Team, led by Dmitri himself, encountered their own nightmares on the second floor. Emergency lights flickered erratically, creating disorienting patterns that played havoc with night vision equipment. Corridors that should have been straight now seemed to curve, leading operators in circles. Someone's modified the interior, Dmitri realized. Panels moved, doors relocated. He's been preparing this for weeks. Detective Chen, maintaining surveillance from outside, noticed strange patterns in the emergency lighting. He's using the building itself as a weapon, she told Torres, creating psychological warfare conditions, same techniques used in advanced military operations. Through her binoculars, she caught glimpses of movement inside, shadows flowing like water, there and gone before you could focus. The storm's lightning cast bizarre shadows through the windows, making it impossible to distinguish real movement from illusion. Petrov, watching his operation dissolve through tactical feeds, felt real fear for the first time in years. Charlie, a team, move in, full tactical response, find him. But Charlie team had their own problems. As they breached the east entrance, automated sprinklers activated. Water wasn't dangerous, but the liquid hitting their skin wasn't water. The burning sensation started immediately. Capsaicin, one operator gasped, recognizing the chemical. He's filled the sprinkler system with pepper spray solution. Robert Morrison, watching from his classroom, saw Cooper's shadow pass briefly through emergency lights. The janitor's movements had changed completely. Gone was the quiet maintenance man, replaced by something fluid and lethal. Third floor clear. Cooper's whisper came through Wong's radio. Moving to Phase 2, in the maintenance tunnels. Beta Team survivors regrouped, trying to navigate back to their entry point. None of them noticed the cleaning supplies arranged along their route, containers of seemingly innocent chemicals, placed precisely where panicked men would knock them over. "Gas!" someone shouted as chemicals mixed, creating clouds of incapacitating smoke. Professional discipline dissolved into chaos. Dmitri, hearing the panic in his men's voices, recognized the pattern. "He's not just fighting us," he told Petrov over secure comms. "He's hunting us, using our own tactics against us." On the first floor, Charlie team encountered another surprise. Door handles, coated with a clear gel hours earlier, conducted electricity from hidden sources. Non-lethal voltage, but enough to stun and disorient. The whole building's rigged, Dmitri realized. Every surface, every corner. We're not in a school anymore. We're in his kill box. Detective Chen, monitoring police bands, caught scattered. Reports of unconscious men being found in the school's parking lot. Beta team members who'd fled the chemical smoke, systematically disabled and zip-tied. "He's not killing them," she noted. "He could, but he's choosing not to." In his command center, Petrov watched thermal imaging feeds showing his team's systematic dismantling. Years of criminal enterprise, millions in resources, elite operators, all being undone by one man with a mop. "Send in the reserve unit," he ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "Full weapons free, no more games." But Cooper was already moving to intercept, ghost-like through his prepared battlefield. Each corridor had been measured, each angle calculated, each shadow turned into a weapon. St. Marcus High had become his fortress, and the night was still young. Through the storm's fury, Detective Chen caught a glimpse of Cooper passing a window. For a moment, lightning illuminated him fully. Not a janitor anymore, but a predator in his natural habitat. The ghost of Commander Mason was teaching the Raven Syndicate why some legends survive and why some places should remain undisturbed. The reserve unit arrived in unmarked vans, their equipment far from standard tactical gear. These were Petrov's elite, former Spetsnaz and Special Forces operators who specialized in high-risk operations. They moved like predators, their weapons modified for maximum lethality. "No more capture attempts," Petrov ordered through encrypted channels. "Terminate the target." Dmitri, regrouping with his remaining Alpha team members, recognized the new arrivals. "Ghost hunters," he explained. Men who specialized in eliminating covert operators during the Cold War. Very expensive, very lethal. But Cooper had prepared for this too. As the elite unit breached the gymnasium, motion sensors triggered hidden speakers throughout the building. The sound system, rewired days ago, began broadcasting a carefully crafted audio mix, mechanical noises, footsteps, whispered voices, creating acoustic chaos. Psychological warfare, Detective Chen observed from outside, recognizing the technique. He's creating an artificial soundscape to disorient them. Inside, the ghost hunters found themselves in an environment designed to negate their advantages. Their thermal imaging showed heat signatures everywhere, carefully placed heating pads, creating false targets. Sound-based positioning systems were useless in the manipulated acoustic environment. He's not just fighting us, one veteran operator realized. He's dismantling everything we rely on. Robert Morrison, watching from his hidden position, saw Cooper's strategy unfold. The janitor had turned the school's architecture against the intruders. Every corridor forced them to expose themselves. Every stairwell became a potential ambush point. In the security office, Marcus Wong tracked the action through his modified cameras. "Third team splitting up," he reported quietly, "moving into kill zones 3 and 4. Cooper's response was typical. 2 words, barely whispered. "Right on schedule." The ghost hunters' first casualties came at the library. As they moved through the stacks, pressure plates triggered shelving units to topple like massive dominoes. 2 operators went down, pinned by calculated debris falls that trapped without killing. "He's herding us," Dmitri realized, watching the pattern emerge. "Every obstacle pushes us exactly where he wants us to go." Petrov, monitoring from his command center, saw his elite unit fragmenting. Years of experience, millions in equipment, being systematically neutralized by school maintenance equipment, turned lethal. The storm's intensity peaked, thunder masking the sounds of combat inside St. Marcus. Lightning strobed through windows, creating disorienting shadows that seemed to move independently of any source. Detective Chen, maintaining her surveillance position, caught glimpses of the ghost hunters being systematically dismantled. "He's not even fighting them directly," she told Torres. "He's letting the building do the work." In the east corridor, 3 operators encountered another of Cooper's innovations. Fire suppression systems activated, but instead of water or foam, they released a cloud of fine powder, cornstarch, harmless but completely disabling to night vision and thermal imaging equipment. "We're fighting blind," the team leader reported, professional calm cracking. "He knows all our protocols, all our equipment limitations." Wong's voice came through Cooper's hidden radio. "They're converging on the cafeteria. Last 6 operators, moving in standard sweep formation." The cafeteria had been Cooper's masterpiece of preparation. Every table was precisely positioned, creating a maze of corridors and blind spots. The polished floor, treated with a special compound, became treacherously slick under tactical boots. Dmitri, monitoring his team's disintegration, finally understood. "This isn't a battle," he told Petrov. "It's an execution. He's not trying to defeat us. He's teaching us why some places should remain untouched." Through the chaos of storm and combat, Cooper moved like the ghost of his legend. Each step had been planned, each encounter choreographed days in advance. The school wasn't just his workplace, it was his weapon, his fortress, his killing ground. The night was far from over, and St. Marcus High still held more surprises for those who dared to threaten its peace. The ghost of Commander Mason was about to demonstrate why some legends survive, and why some enemies should have done better research before choosing their target. In his command center, Petrov watched thermal signatures vanishing one by one from his tactical displays. Years of criminal enterprise had taught him to recognize defeat, but never like this. Systematic, precise, almost elegant in its execution. Send. In the backup team, he ordered, desperation edging his voice. "And get me a secure line to Moscow. We need the cleaners." But the backup team had already encountered their own nightmares. As they breached the school's western entrance, they found the corridors transformed. Maintenance equipment, carefully positioned, created channeled killing grounds. Industrial fans, modified and strategically placed, turned simple cleaning powder into blinding clouds. "He's not improvising," Dmitri realized, watching another team go dark. "Every move, every counter was planned before we arrived." Detective Chen, monitoring from her position, saw the pattern emerging. "Look at the thermal imaging," she told Torres. "He's driving them up, floor by floor, like a sheepdog herding wolves." Inside, Cooper moved with lethal efficiency. His years of maintaining the school had given him intimate knowledge of every corner, every shadow. Now those same spaces became weapons in his arsenal. "Northwest stairwell clear," Wong reported through the secure channel. 4 more tangos moving to the science wing. The science wing had been Cooper's masterpiece of preparation. Chemical storage. Cabinets, seemingly secured, contained surprises for anyone attempting forced entry, non-lethal, but devastating to tactical equipment and operator morale. "Gas!" The call came over syndicate frequencies. Some kind of chemical reaction. Night vision's useless. Robert Morrison, watching from his hidden position, saw Cooper's shadow pass briefly through emergency lighting. The janitor's movement had changed completely. Gone was the quiet maintenance man, replaced by something predatory and precise. "They're running out of options," Morrison reported quietly into his concealed radio. "Starting to bunch up in defensive formations." The storm's intensity peaked, transforming the school's exterior into sheets of flowing water. Lightning strobed through windows, creating disorienting patterns that played havoc with tactical teams' already compromised vision equipment. In the cafeteria, 3 operators from the Ghost Hunter unit discovered why Cooper had spent so much time adjusting the table arrangements. What seemed like random placement was actually a carefully designed maze, forcing them into pre-sighted positions. "He's playing us," one veteran operator realized too late. "Every move we make." The sentence remained unfinished as silent hands emerged from darkness, applying precise pressure to nerve clusters. They went down without firing a shot, their weapons zip-tied to their tactical vests with almost insulting efficiency. Petrov, watching another team go dark, felt cold sweat on his neck. "How many men do we have left?" 4 operational, Dmitri reported grimly. "All others either neutralized or gone." Through the chaos, Cooper's voice came over the school's emergency system, modified to carry to specific locations. "You should have done better research, should have asked why I chose this school." The remaining operators, hardened veterans of countless operations, felt their professional calm cracking. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, as if the building itself was speaking. "Last chance," the whisper continued. "Leave now. Take your wounded, never return." Detective Chen, scanning frequencies, caught fragments of increasingly panicked communications. Elite operators, men who'd survived the world's worst combat zones, were being systematically unmade by a school janitor. "The cleaners are 20 minutes out." Petrov's voice crackled over secured channels. "Hold positions, wait for reinforcement." But Cooper had anticipated this too. As the last 4 operators regrouped in the library, they found themselves facing their final lesson. Every exit suddenly sealed, emergency lights shifting to create disorienting patterns that made combat impossible. "He's not trying to kill us," one operator realized, professional detachment finally breaking. "He's teaching us why some places should remain untouched." Through the storm's fury, St. Marcus High had become more than a battlefield. It was a demonstration of why some legends survive and why some ghosts are best left undisturbed. The night was far from over, and Cooper's most elaborate traps were still waiting to be sprung. The cleaners arrived in unmarked white vans, their vehicles blending perfectly with the maintenance vehicles common to any school. These weren't just operators, they were erasers, specialists in making problems disappear without leaving evidence. Full containment protocol. Their leader, a silver-haired man known only as Winter, ordered through encrypted channels. No witnesses, no traces. The building burns tonight. Detective Chen, observing through rain-streaked binoculars, recognized the new players immediately. "These aren't regular operators," she told Torres. "Look at their gear, customized stealth equipment, specialized demolition charges. They're here to bury evidence, not just eliminate targets." Inside St. Marcus, Cooper watched the new arrivals through carefully positioned mirrors. Their movement patterns confirmed his suspicions. These were cleanup specialists, probably ex-KGB, or similar state-level operators. "Final players have arrived," Wong reported through secure channels, counting 12 new hostiles, moving in diamond formations. "They're carrying thermite charges." Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "They're not just here for you anymore. They're going to burn everything." Cooper's response was characteristic. 2 words that carried deadly certainty. "Let them try." The cleaners moved with mechanical precision, their tactics different from the previous teams. Instead of hunting, they began systematically sealing exits and placing explosive charges at key structural points. "Smart," Dmitri commented to Petrov over secure comms. "They're not trying to find him. They're going to destroy his entire playground." But Cooper had prepared for this too. As the first team of cleaners reached the basement to plant charges, they discovered all the utility access points had been modified. What looked like standard maintenance panels concealed elaborate mechanical traps. "Primary charges compromised," Winter reported, professional calm masking frustration. "Someone's altered the infrastructure. We need to adapt the demolition plan." In the security office, Wong tracked their movements through his modified cameras. "They're splitting into 3 teams. Standard scorched earth protocol." Cooper's voice came back, barely a whisper. "Perfect." The storm reached new intensity, thunder masking the sounds of combat within St. Marcus. Lightning strobed through windows, creating surreal tableaus of the deadly game of cat and mouse playing out in darkened corridors. Detective Chen, monitoring. Police bands caught fragments of encrypted communications. "They're not just professional," she realized. "They're government-trained. This goes higher than we thought." The first team of cleaners encountered Cooper's preparations in the chemistry lab. What appeared to be standard gas lines had been carefully modified. When they attempted to plant charges, they instead triggered a cascade of chemical reactions. "Gas." The warning came too late. Non-lethal but completely disabling, the chemical mixture rendered their expensive equipment useless and their training irrelevant. Winter, watching another team go dark, felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. "This isn't random resistance," he told Petrov. "This is a prepared defensive operation, professional grade." Through the chaos, Cooper moved like smoke, systematically dismantling the cleanup crew. Each encounter was brief, precise, and ultimately decisive. These weren't just fights, they were demonstrations of why some operators become legends. "He's not treating this as combat," Dmitri observed, watching thermal signatures disappear. "He's treating it as pest control." Morrison, from his hidden position, saw Cooper pass through emergency lighting. The janitor's movements had evolved. Again, no longer predatory, now simply inevitable like gravity or time. "West corridor sealed," Wong reported. 6 cleaners remaining, moving toward the gymnasium. The gymnasium had been Cooper's final masterpiece of preparation. Every shadow held purpose, every corner concealed potential. The high ceiling and exposed beams created an environment where a ghost could truly demonstrate why some legends endure. As the remaining cleaners moved into position, Cooper's voice came through their encrypted channels, a whisper that carried decades of experience. Welcome to my house. Class is now in session. The night's final lesson was about to begin, and the cleaners were about to learn why some messes can't be erased and why some ghosts refuse to be cleaned away. The gymnasium had become a cathedral of shadows, its high ceiling lost in darkness despite the emergency lighting. Winter's remaining cleaners moved with practiced precision, their specialized equipment scanning for threats. But something was wrong with the readings. Multiple heat signatures, one operator reported. They're everywhere, coming from the walls themselves. Cooper had spent weeks preparing this space, installing heating elements throughout the structure. Now every surface radiated body temperature, turning thermal imaging into a kaleidoscope of false positives. He's not just fighting us, Winter realized. He's rewriting the rules of engagement. In his command center, Petrov watched another team's signatures fade from his tactical display. "Where is our air support?" he demanded. "We need those helicopters." "Negative," Dmitri responded. "Storm's too severe. No aircraft can operate in this weather." Detective Chen, monitoring from outside, saw new patterns emerging in the school's emergency lighting. "He's using the power grid itself as a weapon," she told Torres, "creating artificial day and night cycles to disorient them." Inside, Cooper moved through his prepared kill zone with lethal grace. The cleaners' formation, perfect for normal operations, played directly into his hands. Every defensive position they took had been anticipated, every countermeasure already countered. 3 more down in the east corridor, Wong reported through secure channels. Non-lethal takedowns, but they won't be getting up. Morrison, watching from his hidden position, saw Cooper's strategy unfold. He's not just beating them, the old veteran realized. He's teaching them. Every encounter is a lesson in why they should have stayed away. Winter's voice crackled over encrypted frequencies. "Switch to ultraviolet imaging, thermals compromised." But Cooper had prepared for this too. As the cleaners activated their UV equipment, hidden ultraviolet lights flared to life throughout. The gymnasium. Every surface had been treated with UV reactive paint, turning the entire space into a disorienting maze of glowing patterns. "Clever bastard," Winter muttered, professional detachment cracking. "He's thought of everything." The storm's fury peaked, transforming the school's exterior into curtains of flowing water. Lightning strobed through the high windows, creating bizarre shadows that seemed to move independently of any source. "Remaining charges are set," a cleaner reported, "ready for final protocol." Winter gave the order, "Execute demolition sequence." But when they triggered the detonators, nothing happened. Cooper's voice came through their encrypted channels, carrying a hint of professional amusement. "Looking for these?" On their tactical displays, a new image appeared. Their own explosives, carefully dismantled and arranged in the school's front entrance. Not as a threat, but as a message. "Everything you bring here becomes mine to use." "Impossible," Winter breathed. "The charges were coded to our specific frequencies." "You should have researched who you were hunting," Cooper's whisper seemed to come from everywhere. "Should have asked why some ghosts choose where they haunt." The remaining cleaners, elite operators with decades of experience, felt their tactical discipline cracking. They weren't just being defeated, they were being... School Detective Chen, scanning frequencies, caught fragments of increasingly desperate communications. "They're breaking," she told Torres. "Professional operators don't panic like this. He's gotten inside their heads." In the security office, Wong watched through his modified cameras as Cooper's final trap prepared to spring. "Last 4 targets, moving into position," he reported, approaching the killing floor. The gymnasium floor had been Cooper's masterpiece of preparation. What looked like standard hardwood concealed a complex network of mechanical systems. With the press of a button, the entire space could be transformed. Remember, Cooper's voice drifted through the darkness. You chose this battlefield. You brought war to a place of learning. Winter, realizing too late what was happening, gave his final order. Fall back! Full retreat! But retreat was no longer an option. The ghost of Commander Mason was about to deliver his final lesson, teaching the cleaners why some messes can't be erased and why some places deserve their haunted reputation. The gymnasium floor came alive with mechanical precision. Sections of hardwood shifted and rotated, creating an ever-changing maze that separated Winter's remaining cleaners. What had been a coordinated unit became isolated individuals, each trapped in their own personal nightmare. This isn't possible, Winter's voice cracked over the encrypted channel. No one man could set up something this elaborate. Cooper's response came from everywhere and nowhere. You assumed I was alone. In the security office, Wong's fingers danced across modified controls, orchestrating the mechanical symphony that Cooper had spent weeks preparing. Each panel movement, each section rotation had been choreographed like a deadly ballet. There, splitting up exactly as planned, Wong reported, moving into kill zones 3 through 6. Detective Chen, watching through her tactical scope, saw new patterns emerging in the school's emergency lighting. Look at the window patterns, she told Torres. He's creating artificial movement to draw their attention while he circles behind. Inside, the cleaners discovered what happened when military precision met mechanical chaos. Their formations, perfect for normal operations, became death traps in the constantly shifting environment. Can't maintain position, one operator reported, professional calm finally breaking. Floors moving, walls are... Everything's wrong. Petrov, watching from his command center, saw his last hope dissolving. Where's Winter? Get me Winter! But Winter had his own problems. As he navigated the transformed gymnasium, he found himself facing a truth his decades of experience had never prepared him for. Some predators are best left undisturbed. You had every advantage. Cooper's voice drifted through the chaos. Numbers, equipment, tactical superiority, but you forgot the most important factor. Through the storm's fury, Morrison watched the systematic dismantling of what had been an elite tactical unit. He's not just defeating them, the old veteran realized. He's deconstructing them, taking apart everything they rely on. The remaining cleaners, trying to regroup, found themselves caught in Cooper's final trap. The gymnasium's bleachers, modified over weeks of careful preparation, began to move. Not just extending or retracting, but shifting in patterns that defied their tactical training. This isn't combat, Winter realized too late. This is art, deadly, precise, perfect art. Detective Chen, monitoring tactical frequencies, caught Winter's last transmission. Full withdraw. Get out while... The message cut off in static. In his command center, Petrov watched thermal signatures vanishing from his tactical display. Not in chaos or panic, but with surgical precision. Each disappearance marked another lesson in why some legends survive. It's over. Dimitri's voice carried decades of experience. We've lost. Cooper moved through his transformed arena like a ghost made manifest. Each step had been planned, each encounter choreographed weeks in advance. The cleaners' sophisticated equipment, their years of experience, meant nothing in an environment designed to negate every advantage. Last 2 targets moving to the center court, Wong reported. Winters trying to establish a defensive position. But the center court had been Cooper's masterpiece. As Winter and his last operator reached what seemed like stable ground, they found themselves facing the final demonstration of why some places should remain untouched. You wanted to learn about ghosts, Cooper's voice surrounded them. Class is now in session. The floor beneath them shifted one final time, not to trap or disorient, but to demonstrate absolute control. Winter, veteran of countless black operations, felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Pure primal fear. Through the storm's fury, St. Marcus High had become more than a battlefield. It was a classroom where the ghost of Commander Mason taught his final lesson: why some predators are best left unprovoked, and why some haunted places earn their reputation. The night's last act was about to begin, and the cleaners were about to learn why some messes can't be erased, no matter how sophisticated your equipment or how extensive your training. Winter had survived 3 regime changes, countless black operations, and more firefights than he could remember. But nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for this moment, trapped in a school gymnasium that had become a mechanical nightmare, facing an opponent who seemed to exist in every shadow. "You have one last chance," Cooper's voice drifted through the chaos. "Surrender, walk away, never return." In his command center, Petrov watched his final assets dissolving into chaos. "Where's our extraction team? Get them in there now." "Negative," Dmitri replied, his voice carrying the weight of defeat. "No one's coming. The storms made air support impossible, and ground teams are refusing to enter the building." Detective Chen, monitoring from outside, saw new movement. "At the school's perimeter, additional units arriving," she reported to dispatch. "But they're not advancing. They're establishing a containment perimeter." Inside the transformed gymnasium, Winter and his last operator found themselves facing the ultimate demonstration of Cooper's preparation. The entire space had become a kinetic sculpture of deadly efficiency, every surface a potential trap, every shadow a possible threat. "Listen," Winter commanded, his professional calm finally cracking. "The mechanical systems, there's a pattern, but that was Cooper's final deception. The patterns were deliberate, false rhythms designed to draw attention, while the real threat moved unseen." "You're right," Cooper's whisper came from behind them. "There is a pattern." The last operator spun, weapon ready, but found only empty air. The movement cost him his balance on the shifting floor, and Cooper's hands emerged from darkness with surgical precision. The takedown was brief, efficient, and ultimately decisive. "Professional courtesy," Cooper said softly, zip-tying the unconscious operator. "Non-lethal but effective." Winter, now alone, felt decades of tactical experience dissolving in the face of something he'd never truly understood until this moment: the difference between an operator and a legend. "Who are you?" he demanded, his back against what he hoped was a stable wall. "Really? Just a janitor," Cooper replied, his voice seeming to come from everywhere. "Someone who chose this place to protect. Someone who gave you every chance to walk away." Through the storm's fury, Morrison watched the final act unfold. "Like watching a master conductor," the old veteran mused. "Every movement precise, every outcome calculated." In the security office, Wong monitored the last phases of Cooper's operation. "Perimeter teams are standing down," he reported. "They've seen enough. No one else is coming in." Detective Chen, scanning frequencies, caught fragments of increasingly revelatory communications. Elite operators, men who'd survived the world's worst combat zones, were warning others away. Not from a threat, but from a lesson they'd learned too late. "It's not about the building anymore," one transmission stated. "It's about respect. Some places earn their guardians." Winter, understanding finally dawning, lowered his weapon. "Tehran 2010, he said quietly. "That was you, wasn't it? The ghost that eliminated 3 GRU teams without leaving a trace." "That was another life," Cooper replied, materializing from the shadows like mist becoming solid. "This is my home now. My responsibility." The gymnasium's mechanical symphony began to slow, its deadly dance coming to an end. The transformed space had served its purpose, not just as a battlefield, but as a demonstration of why some legends endure. Your employers need to understand, Cooper continued, his voice carrying deadly certainty. This place is protected, not just by me, but by everyone who calls it home. Through the storm's diminishing fury, St. Marcus High stood unchanged, yet fundamentally different. What had been just another target had become something else, a monument to why some ghosts choose their haunting grounds carefully, and why some lessons are best learned through survival. Winter, facing the legend he'd dismissed as mere rumor, made his final decision. Some battles, he realized, are lost before they begin. Some opponents earn their reputation not through violence, but through the wisdom to know when it's necessary. The night's final lesson was about to be delivered, and the ghost of Commander Mason was ready to demonstrate why some shadows are best left unexplored. Dawn broke over Portland with unusual clarity, the storm's fury finally spent. Detective Chen, completing her report, watched St. Marcus High emerge from darkness into golden morning light. The building looked exactly as it had yesterday, betraying no sign of the night's events. Final count, she told Torres, reviewing her notes. 27 operators neutralized, all non-lethal takedowns. Sophisticated equipment worth millions abandoned, and one very expensive lesson delivered. In his penthouse, Petrov faced the consequences of his miscalculation. His secure phone rang. Moscow's response to the operation's failure was immediate. And final, they're burning all connections, Dmitri reported, watching their criminal empire dissolve in real time. The syndicate's European partners are already distancing themselves. No one wants to be associated with the organization that challenged the ghost. Winter, released with Cooper's message, delivered his report to his own superiors. His words would circulate through the shadows of the intelligence community. Some places earn their protectors. Some guardians choose their ground carefully. St. Marcus High is now marked not as a target, but as a warning. Inside the school, Cooper pushed his cleaning cart through familiar corridors, methodically resetting his elaborate modifications. Each trap disarmed, each system returned to normal, like a theater being struck after the final performance. Principal Hayes found him in the gymnasium, the floor once again stable, showing no sign of its mechanical transformation. "The school board's investigation team arrives Monday," she said quietly. "They'll want to understand last night's security breach." Cooper nodded, his movements precise as ever. "They'll find nothing unusual, just routine maintenance records and a dedication to keeping the building secure." Robert Morrison, helping to restore his classroom, shared his own observations with Wong. "In Nam, we had a saying, some soldiers become legends, not because of what they do, but because of what they choose to protect." The elderly security guard smiled, remembering his own past. Hong Kong SDU had a similar philosophy. The best operators aren't the ones who seek violence, but the ones who master its application so completely that their mere presence prevents it. Detective Chen's final report would mention only a failed criminal incursion, thwarted by excellent security preparations. But her private notes told a different story. How one man's choice of battlefield had turned a simple school into an impregnable fortress. "The janitor?" her superiors asked. "On vacation," she replied smoothly. Lucky timing, considering the break-in attempt. By Monday, St. Marcus High had returned to normal. Students filled the halls with their usual energy, unaware of how fiercely. Their safety had been defended. Cooper moved among them with his customary quiet efficiency, invisible once again in his grey uniform. But something had changed. In the shadows of the criminal underworld, stories circulated. Tales of a school that couldn't be touched, of a ghost who had humbled the most elite operators in the business. St. Marcus High became more than a building. It became a legend, a warning to those who thought some targets were easy. Principal Hayes, watching Cooper methodically clean the hallways, understood finally why he had chosen this place. Not just as a refuge, but as a mission. Some warriors don't retire. They just find different battles worth fighting. In his secure office, Wong monitored the school's new reputation spreading through intelligence channels. Agencies worldwide quietly marked St. Marcus High as protected ground, its guardian's identity. Becoming part of the shadow world's folklore, the morning sun cast long shadows across freshly mopped floors as Cooper completed his rounds. His weapons were again cleaning supplies, his uniform once more simply maintenance gear, but his eyes still scanned routinely, his movements remained precise, and his dedication to protecting his chosen ground never wavered. Some ghosts, Morrison told his students during a history lesson, choose their haunting grounds carefully, and some places earn the legends that protect them. St. Marcus High had become such a place, not just a school, but a monument to why some shadows are best left unexplored, and why some janitors deserve their unassuming reputation. The ghost of Commander Mason had found his peace, not in retirement, but in choosing what was worth protecting.